So the Washington Post was not the only newspaper not to endorse Kamala Harris. The Los Angeles Times declined to endorse Kamala as well, which also angered the libs quite a bit. But reporting has come out here that shows their endorsement was actually far more based than the Washington Post. For the Washington Post, it was Jeff Bezos' business interests, which almost certainly motivated the decision. In this case, it was the owner of the magazine trying to do right by his daughter. So good for him, and even better by his daughter. Daughter of LA Times owner says endorsement decision stemmed from Harris' stance on Gaza war. That's right. As the nation counted down this fall to a bitterly polarized election, the editorial board of the Los Angeles Times drew up a detailed outline for an endorsement that seemed obvious for an institution that had leaned liberal for generations. Vice President Kamala Harris should be the next president of the United States. A California native and resident of Los Angeles, Ms. Harris was not only a unifying and inspiring generational figure, looks like the Times is doing their endorsement in this article, in the board members' view, but also an important bulwark between Donald J. Trump and democratic institutions. They were unaware, however, that a different...
Is that what she is now?
Yeah. They were unaware, however, that a different and more powerful group had been meeting. The family of Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, the paper's owner, with far different plans for the newspaper's voice. This week, the biotech billionaire who had bought the paper in 2018 for $500 million acted on those plans with scant internal or public explanation, abruptly vetoing the planned endorsement, informing the board through an intermediary that the Los Angeles Times would make no recommendation in the presidential race. For days, readers in overwhelmingly liberal Southern California speculated angrily about a decision that was widely regarded as a favor to Mr. Trump. Again, it's the Los Angeles Times. This is even worse than the Washington Post. You're talking about even more of a lib-centric. It's the Los Angeles Times. And a vote of no confidence in Miss Harris. I mean, the Washington Post is D.C., but that's a national paper of record. The Los Angeles Times, I mean, come on.
It's a local.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody really reads it outside L.A.
No, like the movie reviews were famous. They had that guy, Kenneth Turan. He was like a movie critic. But I don't even know if he writes anymore. I don't even know if he's alive anymore. But that was the only reason anybody paid any attention to the LA Times ever. Not for this kind of stuff. Thousands of readers canceled subscriptions. Again, 3 members of the editorial board resigned. Again, nearly 200 staff members signed an open letter to management demanding an explanation, complaining that the decision this close to the election had undermined the news organization's trust with readers. The Times' News Guild, the newsroom's union, lodged a protest. In social media posts and subsequent interviews with his own news organization, Dr. Soon-Shiong framed the choice as an attempt at neutrality. But in a statement on Saturday that was swiftly challenged by the paper, his daughter, Nika Soon-Shiong, 31, a progressive political activist who has frequently been accused of trying to meddle in the paper's news coverage, said the decision was motivated by Ms. Harris's continued support for Israel in its war in Gaza. Quote, our family made the joint decision not to endorse a presidential candidate. This was the first and only time I have been involved in the process, Ms. Soon-Shiong, who has no formal role at the paper, said in a statement to the New York Times. So she told the Times, yeah, I had something to do with this. As a citizen of a country openly financing genocide and as a family that experienced South African apartheid, the endorsement was an opportunity to repudiate justifications for the widespread targeting of journalists and ongoing war on children. Damn, the kids are all right, are they not? Good for her. In a statement, Dr. Soon-Shiong said the daughter did not speak for the paper. Nika speaks in her own personal capacity regarding her opinion, as every community member has the right to do, the owner said. According to a spokeswoman, she does not have any role at the LA Times, nor does she participate in any decision or discussion with the editorial board, as has been made clear many times. Okay, so here we got some tweets from Nika Soon-Shiong. This is not a vote for Donald Trump. This is a refusal to endorse a candidate that is overseeing a war on children, she says in response to the non-endorsement. I'm proud of the LA Times decision, just as I am certain there is no such thing as children of darkness. There is no such thing as human animals. You know, she's got the Palestinian flag in her bio there. She's also retweeted recently here the Committee to Protect Journalists. The Committee to Protect Journalists is aware of accusations made by the IDF against several journalists in Gaza, accusing them of being members of militant groups. Israel has repeatedly made similar unproven claims without producing credible evidence. She gave that a retweet. She also recently tweeted this. As Mandela said, the temptation is to speak in muffled tones about the rights of the people of Palestine. Having achieved our own freedom, we can fall into the trap of washing our hands of difficulties that others face. Yet, we would be less than human if we did so. So, yeah, she is pretty unmistakably pro-Palestine, and she admits that she had an influence in this non-endorsement. She also retweeted this piece about the recent Ta-Nehisi Coates book. The topic is apartheid. Apartheid is the topic. As Coates said, I don't have hope for a Harris presidency disrupting that colonial system. So, yeah, she whipped her dad into shape. And good family man that he is, he wasn't going to disappoint his daughter. That's every parent's worst nightmare is that they disappoint their kids. She put the pressure on, and they nixed the endorsement, which was planned. And so good for her. Good for her. Runner up for Dissident of the Year, perhaps. In the conversation.
After Rachel Zegler.
Yeah, right after Rachel Zegler, yes. In the conversation. Not at the top, but that is an honorable mention, perhaps, for spiking the Kamala endorsement.
Oh, I'm sorry, Libs. Do you feel that our national media should not be run like Game of Thrones among a bunch of noble houses competing for influence over the public? Oh, does that bother you now all of a sudden that these newspapers, I mean, this one sounds like it was for more based reasons than what Jeff Bezos did. But hey, maybe the press should not be the plaything of billionaires, and billionaires should not be able to dictate the public conversation in that way.
Right.
In fact, it would be nice if they just stay neutral. Like, if anything, okay, you don't like it in this election, but yeah, I mean, they should, especially given who owns these newspapers. What is their endorsement worth? Their endorsements are a fucking farce. Look at that New York Times, Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar joint. What is that worth? It was absurd. It was ridiculous. It was one of those moments that gives you horrifying insight into the level of intelligence that people who read that have. You just try to imagine the mind of somebody who would read that and go, you know what? I like that. I like that. They broke with the tradition because they're both very good. I like that. Let me get another subscription. I'm going to send it to my nephew because he likes Bernie. And I'm going to send him this article. Fucking, it just blows your mind. Like, there are people who would read this and go, yeah, no, that's really good. All right, so wake up, man. Maybe none of these newspapers should be endorsing anybody. I mean, they shouldn't be owned by billionaires to begin with. But if they're going to be owned by billionaires, wouldn't it be better if they just don't endorse anybody?
Well, that speaks to another core hypocrisy of the liberals at this moment. Because I tweeted this out. I'll just read from this. You know, the liberals say out of one side of their mouth that Trump is a threat to a free and independent press. But out of the other side of their mouth, when their favorite credible independent news outlet like the Washington Post doesn't endorse their candidate, they have a fit.
They have a meltdown. Right?
They have a
total meltdown.
So do you value an independent press or not? Because you seem to attack Trump for attacking an independent press, but when the independent press exercises a level of independence, at least in the context of the presidential campaign, and says we're going to stay out of this and just try and give you the facts to whatever that's worth, right? Point is, it's an expression of independence in a certain context, and they have an utter meltdown when that happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, they like the words. They like the words freedom of the press. They like the words democracy. They like the word freedom of speech. They don't like the actual fact of
practice of it. Yeah. Yeah.
When they see it in practice, they lose their minds.
Right.
They really do. Their idea of all of those things is, I'm going to tell you exactly what you expect to hear.
Right.
If anything is said that you do not expect, anything that's off script, anything that's not part of the plan, as the Joker says in Dark Knight, people will accept anything as long as it's part of the plan, even if it's horrible.
Right.
Israel, genocide. All right. They're telling you it's part of the plan. That's okay. That's all right. They're telling you Vladimir Putin going into Ukraine isn't. So they all lose their minds. That's it. That's their idea of democracy. Freedom of speech. They don't even pay lip service to that at this point.
No.
They've kind
The
of
opposite.
been talked into the idea that freedom of speech and working out are both right wing attributes.
That's what got us
You
into
should
this
be
mess.
fat and
Yeah.
quiet.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Fat and quiet. That's right.
Please clap.